Superior Court of California, County of Los Angeles, in the matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA097211. We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of Penal Code Section 187.
Yeah, that's my boy, though. That's my boy.
Wow. You would have thought that somebody, just from those images, somebody have won like the Super Bowl, the World Series, the NBA championship combined. All, I mean, many of you surely remember that 30 years ago, 1994 is when police found the bodies of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman, slashed and cut and stabbed to death. And a short time later, O.J. Simpson, Orenthal James Simpson, was arrested and charged with the murders. And it kicked off the trial of the century. That was 30 years ago. We're going to talk more this week about white noise as it relates to the O.J. Simpson trial. We'll tell you a little bit more about that later in the program today, but stay tuned this week as we talk about white noise and why does that fit? You'll find out. This morning, an eye-opening report in Rolling Stone has revealed that President Biden and top Democrats have been secretly planning for years so-called war games if Donald Trump tries again to steal the presidential election. And the same report shows how, in fact, Donald Trump has already laid the groundwork for such a scenario, including potentially calling out the National Guard to help him pull off the steal. A real detailed report and some on and off the record comments regarding the planning, the war gaming. Think about that, folks. What American politics have devolved to. Malcolm X said, by any means necessary. And apparently, both sides are taking that tack, by any means necessary. Um, lots at stake. It tells you what really is at stake. We heard it in 2020. Biden said the soul of America was at stake. You hear so many people talk about democracy being at stake. It's more than just that, folks. It's more than just that. And it really tells you how crucial this November is on many, many fronts, because you don't just have Black folks and Latino folks concerned. I mean, those who are paying attention anyway. But you got people. We talked on the show about Robert De Niro and people like him, people like Jimmy Kimmel. Folks who are white Americans are concerned. And the bottom line is, really, if Donald Trump gets back into office, it's not Jimmy Kimmel or Robert De Niro, those who look like them, who have to be concerned, who has to have the most concern, put it that way. That's people say, well, so Biden this and Biden that. And I said, you know what? Here's the thing about that. Here's the thing about that. Eh, He's still gonna have his privilege. and and for those who black folk particularly, because this includes Latino folk and other minorities, but black folk in particular, because this is the black press of America. If your hope is that it can't be any worse, if your hope is that, well, the status quo would be whatever, uh, it's not going to be that. It is going to be a lot worse, and it's not going to be the status quo. At best, it's not going to be the status quo. At best, it'll be Jim Crow. At best, you see all those, and this is not conjecture. It's not hyperbole. You see all the evidence because look, a Georgia bill. This is what we're going to talk about this morning as well. Has passed through the state house that's going to penalize employers who recognize unions. So, and this is a right-wing MAGA bill, which is not the worst of all of the bills. The thousands of bills while you're sleeping that they are passing in red states everywhere. It's going to penalize employers who recognize unions. So if you think about that, we're going to talk about this morning, what that means, particularly for Black and brown workers. And that's not the only state that's doing that, but they're the latest to do it. Also this morning, I got to talk about this. Major League Baseball over the weekend announced that it is indeed investigating the matter of their so-called greatest player, Shohei Ohtani. I don't believe he's the great. I know people who've been following baseball as far as baseball writers are concerned. I read a column yesterday, a guy I really have read all my life for the New York Daily News, Mike Lupica. And he in his column and all these other columns, say Shohei is the greatest since Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth was not the greatest. I'm tired of this narrative about Babe Ruth. I don't care what you think about Barry Bonds. I don't care what you think about anybody else, but Barry Bonds' name should be, when you talk about the greatest, should be up there. No doubt Willie Mays and Mark Make It Plain Thompson says Hank Aaron was the greatest. Can't really argue with that. But he also mentioned, while I'm on the subject, in that column, the New York Daily News, he mentioned this when he talks about sports gambling, how you remember it was taboo. You couldn't do it. You get kicked out. Pete Rose got kicked out for life betting on baseball, but you couldn't bet at all. And now, and I mentioned this the other day, you have FanDuel and Caesar Sportsbook Lounge and all of that, and they encourage it. And it's about the point spread. He said in his column, and it was like just a little side note almost. It just skipped over. And even though the column was about Shohei Ohtani, there was one line in it that I couldn't get past. And that line was Cleveland Cavaliers coach Bernie Bickerstaff said that when asked about leaving players in the game, when they're leading the game, and he said, I'd be wanting to, I want to pull my players, it's a 10-point lead or whatever with a minute to go. He says, but then I'm getting yelled at about the point spread. So I got to play my players longer to cover the points. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, these guys said it out in the open. He said it out loud. That gambling, sports betting dictates even coaching decisions. That is like Pete Rose. See, Pete Rose's biggest sin was that not only did he bet on baseball, he bet against the team he was managing, the Cincinnati Reds. That is why Pete Rose, the commissioner, kicked him out for life. But this situation with Shohei. And the fact that Bernie Bickerstaff would say that, so it makes you rethink, makes you at least want to rethink everything when it comes to sports, as far as what's taboo and what's not. Now, I think that um, if you bet against your own team, first of all, you shouldn't be betting, but that horse left the barn so long ago. But I think the only at this point, the way what Bernie Bickerstaff said, which confirmed everything we've already known, that bookies and point spreads and Vegas and all influences the outcome. Why refs blow the whistle when they blow the whistle? Why they foul certain people out? That official, Tim Donaghy, who went to jail, he was spot on. He was the tip of the iceberg, believe it. Nobody else went down except Tim Donaghy because he opened his mouth. Power 96 says Leroy Satchel Paige is the GOAT. And he says ban Ohtani or let Pete Rose in the Baseball Hall of Fame. But these officials, that's why we see the shady officiating, the shady calls. We talked the other day about Sanford, the college basketball team that got robbed in plain sight in front of 20,000 people. But now we getting a clearer picture. If you haven't gotten the picture by now, we see what is influencing this. That's why Angel Hernandez, who is worse at his job perhaps than any employee in any industry in the world, and yet gets to keep on keeping on. Angel Hernandez, for those who may not know, is a baseball umpire who is despised as much as a dictator is despised, who've committed crimes, who is but just to Power 96's point about ban Ohtani or let Pete Rose in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. See, the thing is, the the thing I've always hated about the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame is that baseball writers, those who cover baseball, who've been um, who've been covering it long enough to have credentials for the Baseball Writers Association, they get to vote for a Hall of Fame. They're the ones who vote in Hall of Famers. And I've always long been against that because these writers, many of them, they hold grudges against players. Player may not have been in the mood for an interview. Um, and let's face it, very racist for the most part. You know, they will use terms they have used terms for players of color as surly. They've used the word thug. You don't see those words associated with white players that they didn't like. Remember, there's a guy named Dave Kingman that the press despised, the baseball writers despised, but never was he labeled surly. Never was he labeled a thug. They despised him. Tall white guy, hit home runs to. I mean, this guy would the ball. He hit the ball so far up in the air and deep. I mean, they used to call him Sky King, and some people he didn't like the nickname King Kong. But baseball writers are the ones who vote, and it's not that way in the NBA, which is probably why everybody gets into the Hall of Fame at the same time, right? In the NFL, everybody goes into the Hall of Fame, it seems. But the point with that is that so even if baseball remove Pete Rose's suspension, there's no guarantee that the baseball writers will vote him into the Hall of Fame. And then they have the Veterans Committee, which is what Barry Bonds and people like Roger Clemens will have to depend on. Because after about 10 years, you come off the ballot, or if you don't get 5% of the vote, you come off the ballot. And then at a certain point, when you're dead, the Veterans Committee, who never saw you play, now has to try and vote and decide if you are eligible or if you are good enough. But the Shohei Ohtani thing, skepticism continues to grow about what exactly he knew and how much he knew and whether he was involved in illegal sports gambling or illegal. It's illegal. It's still illegal in California, um, and some other states to use a bookie. And this guy is not registered with Caesars or FanDuel. He's an illegal book. He's a bookie. He's a throwback bookie. And one of the questions have have come up. Bookies. This guy is I will break your leg if you can't pay, you know, even 5,000. And as Mike Lupica put in his column, generally, uh, you get up to about 50,000 and yeah, kneecaps, maybe even worse. This guy was at $4.5 million. And once again, a guy, if it wasn't Shohei Ohtani, why would this bookie allow this guy, ordinary Joe, because $300,000 today, listen, as much as I hate to say it, it's not a whole lot of money. So why would he allow him to run up at least $4.5 million in debt? There's a lot of questions here. I've already said half of what I plan to say later, so we'll talk about more later. Power 96 says, no offense to the good sports writers, but their words are worthless when it comes to evaluating players 1,000%. 1,000%. That's why, listen, even like Stephen A. Smith, people listen to, what? What does he know? Because he watches it. I would feel like I'm just as much as an expert. I've watched sports all my life. Not just watch, but evaluated and everything else. Also this morning, someone has woken up. We say stay woke or wake up. Rob Smith announced that he's leaving the Republican Party after trying to fit in with racist, homophobic MAGA folks. For those who don't know, Rob Smith is a big time conservative who happens to be gay and black. And we're going to tell you why he decided to leave the party. And you say, well, maybe, well, we'll tell you why. But our biggest story this morning is for years. And this is so interesting to me, folks. And it probably should be interesting to you, especially those who follow this political whatever you want to call it in the US, this talking about democracy, saving democracy. Uh, Democracy is dead. Let's just come on right now. Play the trumpets, have the funeral. It's over. For years, Donald Trump, of course, the twice impeached, 4 times indicted former president who a jury also found to have sexually assaulted a journalist who today might have to pay the piper in a big way. Today is the day that Letitia James, the Attorney General of New York, is going to ask the judge to allow her to proceed with seizing his assets like Trump Tower and his golf course and et cetera, et cetera. But for years, he's made it abundantly clear that if he doesn't win the 2024 presidential election, he is willing to cheat and steal it. And since President Joe Biden's inaugural address, according to several sources who spoke both on and off the record with Rolling Stone, those who have intimate knowledge of the situation, Biden and his inner circle have been drawing up meticulous plans and creating a large legal network focused on wargaming, a close election finish in which the former president and Republican Party launched a scorched earth, big lie fueled crusade. Long before Trump began leading in battleground state pollings and years before he was declared the 2024 candidate, the twice impeached, four times indicted ex president and many of his influential allies were already busy plotting ways to steal the election. And these year long efforts, according to Rolling Stone, conducted both secretly and out in the open, have already yielded tangible results for Trump and the conservative election denier movement. Wide ranging operations have alarmed the Democratic Party elite, according to Rolling Stone, who aren't just worried about Biden sagging poll numbers. Numerous Democratic lawmakers, operatives, Biden campaign advisors, and administration officials told Rolling Stone that if the president does ultimately beat Trump this November, they acknowledge that it's going to be an exceedingly close election. And let me pause right there, because every time I see polls that have Trump ahead, or every time I see people and polls that suggest that it's going to be, as the Biden folks say, exceedingly close, and understandably so, that they have to prepare for an exceedingly close election. But it reminds me, and it should remind everyone, of how dangerous this country has become, particularly for people who look like us. To have this man, and this is not an endorsement of President Biden. We don't do endorsements on this program. We will not do endorsements on this program. But to have Donald Trump to even believe, to even understand that he is leading in any poll, leading in any state, the election being viewed as exceedingly close, shows how dangerous America has become. How we see those clips all the time, and Greer has played some of the clips of these crazy, uneducated, hateful MAGA people who can't articulate, just like Trump can't articulate. He's never articulated a policy, ever. They can't articulate why they support him when they get in front of a camera. And sometimes their racism is boiling so over inside, it comes out. Like Obama is running the country. We gave them the Obama, is what she was saying. But over the past year, Biden's team has been conducting war games, crafting complex legal strategies, and devoting extensive resources to prepare for, as one former senior Biden administration official said, quote, all hell breaks loose scenarios. Austin says that January 6th will be child's play compared to what we should expect if Trump loses again. Yeah, and then you see, but the machinations have been in place. And we try to give you headlines that we believe matter to you. And we solicit your thoughts, although you don't always give us your thoughts on what you'd like. But we encourage you to do that. And we fully encourage you to do that on a regular basis. But I say that to say this. It's not just because we want you to, pay attention to the Black press. But mainstream media has gone so far off the charts, off the tracks. You can't trust them. NBC News hired Rona McDaniel. NBC News also, and CNN did the same thing. They have partnered with avowed white supremacists, MAGA people. And what they're going to do is use them to help cover the election. How do you use election deniers? How do you use people who say uh, they stole the election? How do you use them as analysts, reporters? But NBC, like CNN, is seeing um they're not hearing the cash register ring like they used to. And they are looking at Fox as they always do, and all the hate Fox spews and the money that comes along with that. And so they are selling their souls. And so they want to catch up. They want to by any means necessary. It seems to be the theme this morning. They want to make some money. And so the stuff that you're seeing, and then there's a report about Twitter as well. We know Elon Musk is a madman, but all the information that you are receiving from CNN and NBC, now to their credit, the other half of NBC's family, MSNBC, said we will you can hire them and her all you want. We're not putting Ronald McDaniel on our air, on NBC's air, MSNBC's air, I should say. But getting back, so the bottom line is we're going to try and keep you informed and as best we can with the resources we have, because you are not, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, you're not getting what you deserve from mainstream media. The New York Times have gone rogue. They've turned all of a sudden, they've gone more right wing. And you know what's to follow. Everybody else. But getting back to Trump and Biden, the preparations include planning for a contingency in which Biden's margin of victory is so razor thin that Trump and the GOP will launch a tidal wave of legal challenges and political maneuvers to rerun his 2020 election strategy, which was declare victory anyway and try to will it into existence. Now, they are more stacked this time than they were in 2020. Has Trump stacked the Supreme Court and the federal benches, which Biden is trying to uh, even the playing field on the federal bench. But they are in a better position now than they were in 2020 to steal the election. And they have Republican operatives in state houses everywhere, state senates everywhere, and in governor's offices throughout the country. After after the 2020 race was called for Biden, Trump was called. I'm sorry, after the 2020 race was called for Biden, Trump, and much of the GOP went on this sprawling campaign. Of course, a blitz of lawsuits, rabbit conspiracy theories, attempts to block certification. They also put in a slate of fake electors. Imagine what they're going to do this time. 96 mentions that the New York Times should be careful that the president of Mexico gave out one of their reporters' phone numbers on 60 Minutes. Dr. Nicole says, at least it's good to know they have a plan and are trying to prepare for what we know is to come. It is still a shame, and that is that it's come to this, though. Yes. And of course, this culminated, the 2020 situation culminated with the January 6th attack. And one of the things that Ronna McDaniel was saying yesterday, which is very interesting, as she was on Meet the Press with Christian Welker. She says she doesn't fully support Trump wanting to release all of the January 6th convicts. Now, she didn't use the word convicts, I did, because she too, in the past, have labeled them hostages. And NBC News expects people to forget that. These people stormed the Capitol. And it's so interesting to me. It's so interesting to me that the most basic thing, even white people say it. If Black Lives Matter folks would have stormed the Capitol, none of them would have lived to tell you about it. Not one. And so this thing has reached a point where of in Trump world, they even want to call out the National Guard during the election. Is this? We went to Malawi, Africa in 2019, and it was so interesting to me because we were there and was covering this ourselves. The elections there in May of 2019. And the elections were so peaceful. The opposition party was going around encouraging folks, of course, to vote for the lines were as long as you can see. Folks were talking with each other. And this was on both sides, right? The line was not just one party. And they were sharing snacks, and kids were there with their parents or whomever. And lines forever. A couple of times in a couple of locations we went to, both leaders of from each party would drive up in their Mercedes. There's always a Mercedes with their security detail and come out and greet everybody, both sides. Then we went to a prison. And at the prison, long line of inmates waiting to vote peacefully. Yet, while we were there in Malawi, had the televisions on, seeing reports of the Malawi election here in the United States, right? Seeing reports from mainstream media, violence and threats, and this is halting the Malawi elections and making it difficult for people to vote, and people are being threatened, et cetera, et cetera. It was a lie. We were there. We were watching this. But see, Malcolm X said the chickens have come home to roost. And in this case, the chickens have come home to roost when it comes to American democracy and its election, because that's what they are planning for in November. National Guard, hostility. There will not be nobody giving. There are laws. You can't give water to people standing on line to vote. These are laws now that the MAGA people put on the books. And they will freeze them out. They'll make the lines untenable with the hope that those who might vote against Donald Trump will ultimately feel like it's not worth it and leave the line. You can't even aid a senior citizen, a disabled senior citizen in the United States, in most states in the United States now, when it comes to voting. You can't aid them on the line, or maybe they need a break. Maybe they need something cold to drink. And Mike V says Trump used DHS drones to track Black Lives Matter movement across the country during his final days. And it's true. Michelle Madison says that he was on Amtrak going south on January 6th. The MAGA people got on the train like pure gangsters. Was it the Excella, by the way, Michelle? Gotta ask. Gotta ask. But this is serious, folks. This is really serious. So they are doing what they call war gaming. This is a United States of America presidential election. If you need somebody or something else to tell you that America is in trouble, then you certainly have not been paying any attention whatsoever. Austin tells us about when he was in India, in Dubai, and folks are like, what's wrong with you people in America? What has happened to America? Same thing. I told you the story when we were in France and London. That Uber driver say, "Oh gosh, we do not want to be like America." Michelle says she wasn't on the Acceler. Take the Acceler next time, Michelle. You won't have to worry about those goons. Oh gosh. But this is really what is going on, folks. And let's you know what? I think we got some footage to show you. Let's check it out. I wasn't in January 6th. Don't show me. I guess we don't have that footage, but nonetheless, this is what has come down to. Uh, so if you're planning on traveling overseas anywhere, um, no doubt, no matter where you might go, you will hear the question, "What in the world has happened to America? What has happened to America?" Speaking of over traveling overseas and um, Austin. We were Austin is like a superhero, Austin Cooper, yeah. And so he works with a woman named Wanda Lockridge. Um, one of the like thousands of gigs he has. And this is a really good one because they work with neighborhood children in DC, and they really do such a great job. And we met with the kids. We brought them to the Let It Be Known studio in Washington. Um, and we also had them visit Dr. Chavis's the Chavis Chronicles um, studio, and myself and Greer and Washington Informer publisher Denise Rolock Barnes spoke with the kids. It was, I believe, it was 8 or 9 of them. And one of the things that the program does is take some of the kids to Africa every year and help them really understand that they have the future that they might dream of, that they can have that future. And there's so many things that do. We gotta have Austin on to talk about the program, because certainly he can give a much better description of it. But apparently they do it a couple of times a year. Because last year I had the privilege of speaking to the kids. Austin was kind enough to invite me to do that, and again over the weekend, this past weekend, and we had such a great time. That young man that you're seeing in that picture, he says he wants to be a boxer. And one of the problems that was discovered in talking with him is that in Washington, D.C., and many places now, there, boxing is different today. What people really put up now is that UFC stuff. But he says his favorite boxer was Mike Tyson. He liked Tyson. And one reason he likes Tyson is because Tyson hits hard. So, but there's no boxing clubs and things like that. I know when I was growing up, you could box at the Boys and Girls Club, and these young folks, they don't have that. But he aspires to be a boxer. You had others there, a young lady who wants to be a um, weather girl. This young lady cheerleader, but she more than just a cheerleader at her school, but she has quite some ambition. She's going to, we know she's going to be running her own business. I should say her own businesses, because she said, and Greer posed the question about um, what you know. Do you? It's what you know or who you know. Which one is better? Um, and she said it's what you know, because she doesn't want anyone. She doesn't want to depend on anyone to make a way for her. And this young lady that you're seeing on the screen now, she wants to work in what is it, biology, biologist. And I say she wants to, she will. These young people have the will. They have the will and the desire. And what Austin and Wanda Lockridge do is they feed, they help them to feed that desire, and give them something tangible to hold on to and to aspire to, and how to achieve those things. Chemist is what that young lady wanted to, the chemist. Thank you, Greer. David says it's who you know. We had that debate, but really, I think the conclusion was it's both. It's what you know and who you know. But these young people that we will be, and we told them, we will be more than thrilled to be resources for them. And so Austin, big up to Austin, because what he does on a regular basis, this is in his I'm sure he's volunteering. I'm not sure that he gets any type of payment for this, but this is what he does. That is Austin Cooper. As much as we joke with him, but this is one guy who, when folks look back and eulogize him, they're going to say a whole lot of great things about Austin Cooper, and that is you know something that we appreciate about him. Yes, David says our hero Austin Cooper. And David says exposure is the greatest gift that y'all can get. And I mentioned traveling. Many of them, to my surprise, Denise said she wasn't surprised. To my surprise, they have traveled outside the country. It's a far cry. So he gets different groups in. I guess each session, not session, but term, if you will. I don't know how it works, Austin, but because the last group I spoke to, um, they had challenges with that. But this group, really good. You had some who were taking Italian and French and Spanish, and it is unreal, the potential. That's why it's so important. Another reason why it's so important. Pay attention to the young ones. This world seems to have forgotten about the young ones, and particularly, let's pay attention to the young ones of color. Mike V says it's a good thing the Chips and Science Act supports STEM development of Black children in the K to 12 and HBCUs. And once again, when you hear the Ice Cubes and the Snoop Dogs and everyone else talk about Trump being their boy, think about what Mike V just said. That Chips and Science thing is something that no other administration was able to work through and get passed, and Biden did it. and it's paying dividends already. And that's something else we got to change, David Youngblood. He says less than 8% of African Americans have a passport. That needs to change. Proud to say my children have passports, all of them. So we mentioned at the top, Georgia Republicans passed a bill that penalizes union-friendly employers. The legislation bars workplaces that voluntarily recognize unions from receiving state subsidies. Brian Kemp, the Republican governor, has backed that bill, while the president of the AFL-CIO, Liz Schuler, called it appalling. Said it violates long-held precedent established by the National Labor Relations Act. Union leaders and Democrats have argued that the bill violates the 1935 National Labor Relations Act, which governs union organizing by blocking part of federal law allowing companies to voluntarily recognize unions that show support from a majority of employees. At the end of the day, voluntary recognition is a protected right, period, said Hannah Perkins, who's the political director for the Georgia AFL-CIO Union Federation. And speaking of at the end of the day, how do this, listen, why we can't put any measure of esteem certainly when it comes to our community folks, Black folk in particular. Let's not put stock. I keep mentioning like Ice Cube and Snoop Dogg. Let them entertain you if you want, but don't let them shape your thoughts. Certainly not your political thoughts or whatever. Glorilla, which I don't know why she adopted that name. MAGA folks probably every day having a ball with that one. But Glorilla was on CNN after visiting with the president and the vice president at the White House. And she was simply asked, how did that meeting go? And she was asked by the CNN reporter, was there an appeal for you to endorse the administration, the Biden Harris ticket? Was it an appeal for you to help get out the vote? I mean, reasonable questions. And her answer was horrible, was absolutely appalling. And I don't know if we have the footage from her response to the CNN reporter. But what she did was she started to laugh and giggle.
People get out the vote. Hey, that ain't got nothing to do with me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just living my life like it's golden, living my life like it's golden. But I'm not gonna, talk politics. But I love the president. You know what I'm saying? I love everybody, and at the end of the day gotta end.
Oh, oh my gosh. To her, it's probably a very profound statement. At the end of the day, they got to end. I mean, maybe the reporter should have just simply asked, "Why were you there?" I just don't know, and I'm not blaming that CNN reporter because I don't think anything she asked could have gotten a coherent answer from that individual. And I only say that with so much at stake. That's what mainstream media does anyway. They go after the least informed when it comes to Black folk. I can think of on my own a couple of thousand Black women that they could have picked who would have articulated a response worth articulating. It's absolutely annoying, to say the least, that they continue to do this. There are some people we run into, I guarantee you, they will never be platformed here. I mean, come on, I embarrass y'all enough. We don't need nobody else on here to embarrass us. So, oh my gosh, you got to stop. But I want to get back quickly to Shohei Ohtani. Here's a guy that you know the story by now. His interpreter, who makes $300,000 a year, was in for over 4.5 million to a bookie. The money that was paid was wired in Shohei Ohtani's name from Shohei Ohtani's bank account. And today he's expected to finally address the media after Major League Baseball has announced over the weekend it was going to investigate the situation, including him. Now, for his sake, if you a Ohtani fan, they have prepared and vetted what he's going to say very carefully, because that if he's using the same team that sent that interpreter out to speak for 90 minutes to ESPN and then sent him back to change his story, Ohtani's going to be in some serious trouble. And so a lot of things have come into question about this. This guy signed, we talked about it, a $700 million contract with the Dodgers. The caveat was really interesting. He doesn't start getting paid until after he basically retires in 10 years. They pay him $2 million a year for the next 10 years, right? Why would somebody do that? Why? I want my money now. Most people want it's okay to defer some money, and we've heard the stories of people of baseball players and athletes having money deferred, but not $68 million a year on a $70 million a year contract. So that is part of this guy's mystery. Why would he do something like that? Because it's not all about just helping the Dodgers. The Dodgers got plenty of money. And he's been in the league now for 11 years. And he signs with the Dodgers, comes to spring training last month with the Dodgers with his wife. Now you say, so what's the big deal? Up until last month, and he's been married for what, 14 years? He played with the Los Angeles Angels for 11 years. No one in the Angels organization knew he was married. None of his teammates knew he was married. He never mentioned a wife. He shows up in Dodger camp with a wife of 14 years. And even the players on the Dodgers like, wait, what are you talking about? And so we're to believe this guy. Then he says he doesn't even know about any other sport, which is ludicrous to say. Through a spokesperson, he says, and of course, you know how the internet, the web, the social media is undefeated. They start posting pictures of him wearing all these different jerseys, soccer jerseys, football jerseys, basketball jerseys. Oh, wait, you said you didn't know anything about other sports. Now there's a thought that this guy does speak English. Shohei Ohtani, I'm going to say it, is a fraud. And he's dumping all this on that interpreter. He is a fraud. And it's time for baseball and others, those who cover baseball, and I will hand it to some, like I mentioned on the show before, Jeff Passan, one of the best writers there are, has started now going in on him. It's about time. And Quinn says, Mr. Durrett says, baseball contracts are 100% guaranteed unless you there's domestic violence involved, a felony involved, or you bet on baseball. They can terminate the contract legally. So there is a couple of unlesses there, Quinn. And I believe, because that interpreter, if he didn't know the laws and the rules as he first stated, and they made him change that, he didn't know that, then why did he say, and he made a point, but I didn't bet on baseball. He made a point. If he didn't know the rules, and it all goes back to the premise, and I know that people probably get tired of this, but you know what? Get tired of the truth all day long. If this was Barry Bonds, Ken Griffey Jr., heck, we go back even further, the great Willie Mays or Hank Aaron, there'd be no questions. They'd be banned immediately, at least suspended until the investigation is completed. The Dodgers are rolling this guy out day in and day out, putting extra security in the locker room. They've even carved out a section. Everybody has their lockers next to each other. And they've carved out a section where there are 8 empty lockers surrounded him, so the press and everyone else can stay away, and even some of his teammates. How is that going to play with his teammates eventually? Right now, they're supportive, but you got some egos on that Dodger team. This is not the Angels, perennial cellar dwellers. This is the mighty Dodgers. You got Mookie Betts on that team. You got some big time superstars on that team. And to see this guy who has caused now, this is supposed to be a feel-good season for the Dodgers. And this guy has caused this type of scrutiny. These athletes, one thing about professional athletes is that they don't suffer fools kindly in the locker room. And Ohtani is up to him and his people. He has some bad advisors, obviously, when this situation first broke, because to put that interpreter out there on ESPN for 90 minutes, I saw in many reports, and Miss Perry's asking, is he a spy? You should wonder. But I've seen in many reports that quoted numerous lawyers who said, how in the that lawyer should lose his law license for letting them speak out like this. Everybody should have shut up because they know the deal. See, and one version of the story is that Ohtani was present when the money was transferred. Another version says he wasn't present. Another version says he agreed to repay the debts. Another version said he didn't. And these both versions were okayed by his legal team. Y'all know something ain't right. It's just not right. $4.5 million. And he's, again, I said it the other day, and I'm gonna say it again because I think it's important. This is an interpreter. This is not his accountant. This is not his financial advisor. This is not somebody who had access to Ohtani's bank accounts. This interpreter. So if Ohtani was paying off this guy's debt, so the problem, so this is why you got the conflicting statements. One reason why you got the conflicting statements, not only because it jeopardizes that $700 million contract, but it jeopardizes his liberty because in Los Angeles, you can do jail time if you are simply the go-between between an individual and a bookie in the state of California. It's illegal. So the first story that Ohtani was paying his debt, his friend's debt, jeopardizes Ohtani legally. So they changed the story and then they totally threw the interpreter under the bus. He committed massive theft. Okay. Suppose we go with the story that he stole $4.5 million from Shohei Ohtani. How does that explain that after this alleged theft, he and Shohei were captured on video, palling around, you stole $4.5 million from me. I don't care who you are. You could be kin. You could be blood. We're gonna be spilling some blood. But more importantly, if this guy stole $4.5 million, how come all of the reporters in their stories said they checked with the Los Angeles Police Department, they checked with the sheriff's office, they've checked with the Department of Justice, and there is no criminal complaint? Shohei Ohtani is not who they want you to think he is. That's why you got all of this mystery. And he's going to speak today, and he's either going to, two things are going to come out of that. It's not going to be an either or. Two things are going to come out of that. Some people are going to say, okay, we understand. And then others are going to say, I told you, this guy is not right. And then there might be a faction who's still not undecided. But I'm decided. I'm telling you right now, I'm decided. And so only reason why we're talking about a Japanese baseball player on the Black Press is simply because if it was a black baseball player that we were talking about here, we'd be talking about him being bailed out of jail right now, awaiting trial, suspended, contract voided. Just want to give you guys, as November rolls around, we want to arm you with all the information that you're not getting from mainstream media, because all this stuff ties in. I was talking to Dr. Chavis this morning. Dr. Chavis calls all times at night. I can't keep his schedule. It's impossible. I don't know. I just don't know how he does it. But all of it, Dr. Chavis always makes the point. You got to think beyond the obvious. All of it ties in. All of this ties in, and including this. Rob Smith, a gay and black conservative who was heckled and called racist and homophobic slurs while attending a MAGA event, said he is finally leaving the Republican Party. Smith is a longtime conservative commentator, and he says he now identifies, check this out, this dude says he's politically homeless. He says, I was betrayed by the Republican Party. He was confronted and surrounded by what he described as white supremacists that don't like gays or blacks in the Republican Party. No kidding. No kidding. So really, we need a whole lot more Rob Smiths, meaning people to wake up. At this late date, you realize, Rob Smith, they don't like blacks and gays? At this late date? I mean, I guess we should be happy you finally woke up. But it took him
Well, first of
to
all,
enter the MAGA
I
world.
say, and I don't gay or lesbian black people for saying that they can't be a part of it. What I will say is this: A lot of people want to ask me these questions about what's going on with the movement. They want to ask me the questions about what's going on with, like, let's say Donald Trump. And what I say is this, is that I don't focus on what people say, I focus on what they do. And when it comes to Trump, when it comes to the mainstream Republican Party right now, I have seen Donald Trump be the first Republican to ever, the first president to ever enter office supporting marriage equality, either Democrat or Republican. I saw him partner with the RNC in the log cabin Republicans to spend over $1 million in a get out the vote effort specifically targeting gays and lesbians.
He's seen Donald Trump. He saw the face of evil, is what he saw. Very delusional, very much so. As Power 96 says, he finally got he finally got his N-word moment. Now he's a real ball of confusion. It's sad that we have people who look like us who go down a path that any halfway intelligent person understands that you're going down that path and it's a door to no return. Mike V says, according to Black conservative Wesley Hunt, there is no problem with race on the right. Yeah, sure. But the bottom line is, if you're going that way, then you got to be Candace Owens. You got to go all the way, right? Now she's we'll get into this later this week too. She's trying to crawl back to the Black community. Yeah, let her keep crawling on. As you know, we'll go into Candace Owens another time. We are way over time this morning. Folks, the O.J. Simpson trial of 1994 captured the attention of the entire nation. 30 years ago, it began. The saga of O.J. began 30 years ago. It became a pivotal moment in American history. The fascination with the
I think this jury sent a message that the time has come here in Los Angeles and in America that indeed there must be a level playing field for everybody.
And I'm just don't think justice was served. I don't think the jury did their job. I think they knew what they were going to do from the gate. I think it was racist based, and it was racist from the Black point of view.
Again, the O.J. Simpson trial, it captured the attention of everyone. It became a pivotal moment in American history. The fascination with the trial stemmed from various factors, including O.J.'s celebrity status as a former football star and actor, the brutal nature of the crimes he was accused of, and the highly publicized courtroom drama. However, perhaps the most significant aspect of the trial was how it starkly divided America along racial lines, as you saw just there in that clip. For many white Americans, the evidence against O.J. seemed overwhelming, leading to widespread belief in his guilt. On the other hand, many African Americans viewed the trial through an entirely different lens, skeptical of a legal system that they felt had historically discriminated against people of color. It wasn't just a feeling. It continues to this day. The acquittal of the police officers involved in the Rodney King beating, despite clear video evidence, further fueled that distrust that African Americans have with American justice. Therefore, when O.J. was acquitted, it was seen by many Black folks not as a celebration of O.J. himself, don't get it twisted, but rather as a rare instance of the justice system working in favor of a Black man. While O.J. may not have been an active figure in advocating for African American and African American rights, his acquittal symbolized a form of defiance against a system that had long been perceived as unjust to the Black community. The sight of white Americans crying over the verdict only served to reinforce that sentiment, with many Black Americans viewing it as yet another example of racial bias. Thus, the celebration of OJ's acquittal among Black people was not about exonerating OJ, but about asserting a sense of empowerment in the face of a system they believed had failed them time and time and time again. How do deeply entrenched racial biases continue to shape perceptions of justice in America? And what steps can be taken to address and dismantle these systemic inequalities? This week, we're going to try to cut through the white noise and examine and answer that and many other lingering questions, not just about OJ, but America's Black and white divide. Stay tuned this week as we talk white noise. And also stay tuned and go to our YouTube page. Y'all know what I'm going to say. Hit the share button. Let it be known news YouTube channel. And I'm going to get a report from Power 96 tomorrow on just how many people hit that subscribe button, I should say. Thanks for watching. Let it be known, folks. And we'll bring you some more tomorrow.